Ramos. I was procurement manager for Miami-Dade County, for the clerk's office. We had a lot of vendors trying to come here for electronics, mainly Motorola, IBM. But with the traffic problems in Miami, they didn't come here. And those are a lot of jobs that are, starting jobs for people immigrants that come, that, they don't know the English very well, but they can handle doing, transistors, stuff like that. And we need those jobs here. And you answered most of the question already, because you just said that we need to plan ahead. We need to have a very good, before we get these companies to come here, we need to fix the traffic. Miami's terrible in the traffic.
Oh, yes.
And Miami is, like you said, a little known. It's very different from Tallahassee. It's a metropolitan, big metropolitan. And if we want to grow, we got to do that. And we got to plan ahead, not wait till the things hit us. Okay? I like the way she thinks. I was in the economic committee with her. Natalie, Mariano,
I'll make sure I know the other mic's floating around. I don't want to.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Service.
And we got to make sure we come down to this young lady down front too. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for your service. Two things real quick. The Voting Rights Act, how will that get passed? What's stopping it from getting passed right now? I know it's in the Senate, but I'd be interested in your take. What has to happen? The second thing I have is about...
Quick question. Are we talking about the Federal Voting Rights Act?
Yes.
Okay, continue. I'm going to answer, but go ahead.
Okay. Secondly, lawfare. I'm going to respectfully guess that you don't have Trump money, neither does Marco, neither does DeSantis. Are people going to go to jail for what they've done to Trump over the last 10 years so they don't do it to you, so they don't do it to DeSantis or Marco, J.D. Vance? There needs to be consequences. Is something behind the scenes happening for people to get consequences for what they've done to Trump to make sure it never happens again? To you.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for the question. I'm going to take Voting Rights Act first. I'm going to come to lawfare. Right now, the Supreme Court is hearing, I forget the section of the Voting Rights Act, but the one that deals with what affectionately is called racial gerrymandering. The Supreme Court is going to decide in short order whether that's going to continue to be the law of the land. I support the Supreme Court looking into this. My hope is that they do end racial gerrymandering, and here's why. There was a time, obviously 1965, where the Voting Rights Act as it existed originally was definitely needed. There's no doubt about that. But we have to acknowledge the reality of today's America, where it's not about the color of your skin. There was a time where it definitely was. We know what happened. The history of our nation at that time was just not very good. That's just a fact. The Supreme Court has already struck down what they called essentially having to get pre-clearance. The Supreme Court already struck that down. I live in Collier County, Florida. Collier County was a pre-clearance county under the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I've lived in Collier County now for 23 years. I've never had an issue as a black man voting in Collier County at all. And there has not been any issues for anybody who's a minority in the United States in Collier County the last 25, really frankly the last 40 years, casting a ballot in Collier County, probably longer than that. So the Supreme Court looking at the Voting Rights Act is the right thing to do. What's happening in Congress is that we have Democrats who are trying to reinstitute the entire Voting Rights Act as it existed in 65. But that ignores the reality of America in 2026. And the truth is, the reality of America in 2026 is that you are not seeing what the actions of the previous Democratic Jim Crow South that systematically took away voting rights from black Americans. That does not exist today. And that is why the Supreme Court is going to go through the process of reviewing the Voting Rights Act. If they strike down racial gerrymandering, which it sounded from the oral arguments that it's a strong possibility that that's going to occur, then what's going to happen is congressional districts will be shaped based upon jurisdictions, not just purely around race. And there was a time where that was needed. That time was in 65 through the 70s and even into the 80s. The question is, with America's political framework today, is that necessary today? And I don't think that it is. Now, to lawfare. This is a tough one. Let's talk about, are people going to be held accountable? This is where we have to be careful not to be the radical left. The very premise of our nation, in part, is the presumption that you're innocent until proven guilty. Even though in the court of public opinion, we could look and be like, oh yeah, you're guilty as hell. You're guilty. But the truth is, the way our system works is that there has to be a legally binding process where these cases are investigated and people have an opportunity to address a jury of their peers. If, as conservatives, we decide that we are so angry with the radical left that we take on their tactics, that is the way that this experiment called America falls apart. And we would do it to ourselves. I want to hold them all accountable. I do. And I think in part the way you do that is you expose how tyrannical they really are, which we've done, and then they lose political power as a result, which has happened. I think the next step is, whether it's the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, or our Attorney General here in the state of Florida, James Zuthmeier, if there is probable cause to continue investigation and bring charges, go right ahead and do that. Because the law cannot be a respecter of persons. The law cannot be a respecter of politics. The law cannot be a respecter of wealth. The law has to be evenly dispensed blindly for the entire fabric of the country, because that's the only way you can have a more perfect union. So I don't want it, trust me, I don't want it to happen to Marco, and I don't want it to happen to me. But that's why I believe we advocate for transparency. We expose this corruption when it occurs. I believe we have exposed that corruption as it occurred, and we've made sure the American people are aware of it. But the second piece is you still have to go through the legal process. And look, I get it. It's easy for the court of public opinion, especially on social media, to say you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that, or that means nothing happens. The truth is there has to be an orderly legal process. Because if we let happen in America, quite frankly, what's happened in other countries around the world, where the pendulum just swings, that destroys your country. And that's not a statement from me. We have watched this happen around the globe. In many, many countries, Central America, South America, France in 1850, where the guillotines came out and you had the French Revolution, and that was destructive of the former French Republic. It was destructive. And I'm not a special pleader for the French aristocrats, but that is not the way you dispense justice. That's not justice, that is mob rule. And mob rule always leads to tyranny. I don't care what party you're talking about.